And welcome to the weekend Primetime. I'm Antonia Hilton along with Eamon Mohideen and Elise Jordan. Catherine is off. We're going to begin tonight with breaking news. We're following the latest developments in the Middle East in the fight to end the war with Iran. Just moments ago, Trump posted on Truth Social, the deal with the Islamic Republic of Iran is now complete. Congratulations to all. I hereby fully authorize the toll-free opening of the Strait of Hormuz and simultaneously herewith authorize the immediate removal of the United States naval blockade. Ships of the world, start your engines, let the oil flow. Also tonight, Pakistan's Prime Minister announced the official signing ceremony will be on Friday, the 19th of June in Switzerland, adding, quote, "We would like to thank the United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran for their commitment to finding a diplomatic solution to the conflict." So, Eamon, I have to go first to you to understand this. Gut first reaction is, I think millions of Americans will be relieved to hear that there is a deal here of some kind. But I think there will also be some trepidation, some confusion about the details as they emerge of what's about to happen next. And I think just the ultimate question is, are we better off right now in this moment, you think, than we were when this whole war began?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. And the short answer to your question is no, we are not better off. You know, just on the surface of it, you've had 13 American service members killed. You've had thousands of Iranians, including school children, killed. You've had a region in turmoil, and not to mention the people that have been killed in Lebanon and people killed throughout the Arabian Gulf. So just from a sheer human toll, we are not better off. And the reason why I say we are not better off is because the core questions that all of this was predicated upon. Will Iran have a nuclear program? Will it stop its support for proxies? Will it give up its ballistic weapons? Will it continue to be a threat to the region and to its Arab neighbors? None of those questions have been answered definitively. And so what it really does raise is, well, what has been achieved in this agreement? And it simply brings us back to February 27th, where we were on the eve of this war. You can see a lot of stress in President Trump's post when he says, let the oil flow, right? Because you can clearly see that this was a major issue that had America and the global economy somewhat crippled as a result of this war. And the first thing he does is acknowledge, not signaling anything to the brave American men and women who died in this war, not saying that this was a costly war, but saying to oil companies and to shipping companies, start your engines, let the oil flow. And it gives you a sense of the desperation and the pressure that Donald Trump was facing as a result of this war of choice, not a war of necessity, something that a lot of people said you did not need to do. And that, I think, is the context in which today's agreement is important to kind of keep in mind as we talk about it. I come back to the point that what we want to understand about this deal has not, moved forward. And the reason why I kind of say it like that is, if you go back to February 27th, where the United States was engaging in negotiations with Iran to try to end its nuclear program, we know that is not part of this immediate deal. The framework, as I understand it from speaking to people over the past several days, is that this deal immediately ends the war and at the same time opens the Strait of Hormuz. And the questions about Iran's nuclear program, its enriched uranium, all of that would be discussed over the next 60 days.
So the real work begins.
Exactly, in a separate track of negotiation. So that's where we are now. We're just going back to February 27th. And to your point, the real negotiations are now going to start over the next 60 days, which can be extended indefinitely so long as the two sides are involved in these talks directly.
The Trump administration would argue that, well, they've made a dent in Iran's capabilities, in their weaponry, in their military. What do you think of that claim, given that we saw actually a pretty robust drone capability that we knew that Iran had, but had not exercised in the region in the way it did during this war?
Yeah, it's a really good point. And there's a few things that I would kind of tackle with that. One is, I think it was just a week ago that the Iranians shot down an Apache helicopter right over the Straits of Hormuz.
With a drone.
With a drone. And then on top of that, they attacked Israel just a couple of days as well. I think it was last week as well when they attacked Israel with drones. They attacked Kuwait a week ago and killed a civilian there at the airport there. So whether or not you want to kind of get into the semantics of what the administration is, we destroyed their Navy, we destroyed their military, we destroyed whatever it is, true. but Iran is still capable of inflicting damage on our Arab allies, on us, and on Israel. So the reality is Iran may have been weakened as a result of this war, true, but at the same time, it still has an unbelievable capability to inflict a lot of damage on us. So I wouldn't take a lot of value in what Donald Trump is saying about how much we've degraded Iran's capability. But I go back to February 27th, which was prior to that, Iran had not attacked its Arab neighbors. It did not have leverage over the Strait of Hormuz. It had not, directly engaged in direct war with Arab countries. It has done all of that as a result of the American war. So on some hand, Iran has been degraded, but at the same time, we have learned so much more about their capabilities. And now the country is being run, apparently, by much more hardline elements within the regime, and more of the power is consolidated with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, which is way more hardline than some of the moderate politicians that the United States had negotiated with in the past and who were kind of more open to dealing with the United States. You have hardliners now in Iran who are making these decisions about war, and they feel emboldened by what they have just endured.
Well, that's the other thing missing from Trump's post is, you mentioned how he's sort of sending a direct message to oil companies. He obviously wants to fix the economic woes that we're all living with. But where did the whole message around like freedom, democracy, and the protests go? There is no message there to the Iranian people living in Iran under this regime that you just mentioned. And the attempt to build a lot of support for what started in February, it hinged on a lot of that. And I know that analysts were warning, they're never going to do it. They're never going to do it. This regime change operation is not real. It's a cover for something else. So I'm not saying that I'm surprised. But I do think it is sort of sad because we had, Iranians on our air who had high hopes of things changing.
In announcing the war, he teased that he encouraged the protesters, the Iranians to rise up.
Yes, he did. The Israelis did as well. Yeah. There was a whole global sort of drumbeat around this. But now it's not even like, oh, we're sorry and we're going to bring that back to the table in some form. It just seems like the question of like human rights in Iran, that doesn't really matter to what happens next.
I cannot emphasize this enough as somebody who's covered the Middle East multiple decades. The United States may pay lip service to democracy and human rights and freedom in the Middle East, but its actions do not support that rhetoric. And I think this is just the latest example of that particular approach. Donald Trump promised democracy and freedom to the Iranian people. He signaled regime change. He told them it's time to claim your country. The Israeli prime minister did the same exact thing, only to see that the United States government, and to be specific, this Trump administration, I would go so far as saying betraying the aspirations and the hopes of the Iranian people who risked their lives back in January and for the past several years in rising up. You got the Women Life Freedom Movement, the Green Movement before that, many movements within Iran who have aspired for democratic reform in that country, who are hinging their hopes on the U.S. and doing something, failing to follow through with it this time around as well. So,
all right. Well, we're next going to bring in Congressman Adam Smith. He's the ranking member of the Armed Services Committee. Congressman, it's good to have you back on the show. We're just going to invite you into the conversation that we were just having there. I hope you were able to hear some of it. But how do you view the current state of play, given what you may know about the deal announced tonight? Do you think that we are better off on a single metric? Are we better today, safer today than we were back in February?
No, I mean, I substantially agree with pretty much everything that Ayman said in your first segment there. I mean, the two big initial reactions are, one, I really hope this sticks because stopping this war is so important. I mean, the devastation it's caused certainly throughout the Middle East, but across the world economically, it has expanded in all the ways that Ayman described. You have Iran attacking, half dozen or more different countries in the Middle East. The war between Israel and Lebanon has exploded. Israel's actions in the West Bank continue apace. We have a lot of violence and conflict. If this can be a step towards calming that down and moving us towards peace, then I'm very excited about it. But second, it makes it very clear that this war was just a colossal mistake. No, we are not any better off. I think Ayman summed it up quite well. I mean, the Strait of Hormuz wasn't on the table. The Arab neighbors had not been attacked by Iran. Now they have. And basically, we're sort of back where we were when we started. No clear nuclear deal. And all we've done is reopened a strait that, well, sorry, we haven't done this yet. If this plays out, which is still an open question, even if it plays out, all we've done is reopen a strait that was open in the first place. So, and I want to get at one quick thing. The core problem here with Netanyahu and Trump is they seem to think that they can vanquish all of their enemies, that whatever conflict they face, if they simply apply enough force, they will break Hezbollah, they will break Hamas, they will break Iran, and then we'll get everything we want. That is just not going to happen. This is a situation that's going to have to be managed. We cannot kill our way out of it. And I still don't fundamentally think that either President Trump or Prime Minister Netanyahu understand that. We have to find partners for peace, not just enemies that we want to kill.
Congressman, let's play a clip of President Barack Obama earlier on ABC and what he had to say about this deal and Iran.
It is doubtful that any agreement that arises is going to be significantly different or a significant improvement from the deal that we had. I'm hopeful that bombing stops and ordinary people are no longer suffering as a consequence of the war.
Congressman, so you kind of have the conundrum that Democrats are in politically. The good thing for the world is that this deal is reached and that the war is contained and hopefully we can go back to where we were before. But it didn't accomplish anything except, putting us in this worst position and showing us the capabilities that Iran has with drone warfare. And because it's Trump, though, Republicans are probably going to be okay with giving Iran some money.
They're going to say this is the most incredible accomplishment the world has ever seen. And they'll just basically flush the flat facts down the toilet and just say what they ever want to do. And I hope that we hold them to the facts on this. And this was always the problem with Iran. I remember back, and I was a strong supporter of the JCPOA, and a lot of people were critical of it. Well, it doesn't do anything about their ballistic missile program. It doesn't do anything about their support for terrorist proxies. There was nothing on the table that was going to address those issues. Iran is a nation of 93 million people with a hardcore Islamic regime that is dug in and not something that you can simply remove, which means you're going to have to deal with them. And President Obama was the first president to actually accept that reality. I think Fareed Zakaria wrote a piece a couple weeks ago about how the fundamental conflict with U.S. and Iran is we were always on the one hand saying, we'd be better off if they were gone. On the other hand, we were trying to deal with them, and you really can't do both. Okay, you can't be trying to completely remove a regime and at the same time work with them. And President Obama accepted the fact that they were a fact of life, not one that we're happy about. I know, 47 years worth of conflict. They have supported Hezbollah and Hamas. They are dutifully trying to eliminate the state of Israel. All of that. We don't have a plan on the table to eliminate them, so we had better come up with a plan to deter them and deal with them. And sadly, on February 27th, we were as close as we've ever been. Okay, and part of this is you do have to fight sometimes. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I understand that Israel had to make sure that they contained that threat, but they had done that as of February 27th. Iran was in the weakest position they had been in. We were in a position to negotiate a decent deal, and instead Netanyahu and Trump decided, no, I think we can do this one quick strike and they'll be gone. And the depths of the stupidity in reaching that conclusion just cannot be adequately plumbed.
Congressman, let me ask you about that situation, the relationship between America and Israel right now, because there is the concern that Israel could play spoiler to this. From what we understand, and certainly from what I've learned about this deal, the Iranians want to include Lebanon in that agreement. Donald Trump has hinted that he will incorporate Lebanon to the extent that he can. But he's also called reporters today, or at least he spoke to reporters today, which he often does whenever he wants to try to tout an achievement and a success. And he's expressed his frustrations with Benjamin Netanyahu about the strike in southern Beirut today. Are you concerned that the Prime Minister of Israel could play spoiler to this and try to engulf Lebanon in this war, so much so that Iran feels the need or compelled to respond?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's Netanyahu, it's the extremists that he put into his cabinet. To have Smotrich and Ben-Gvir in that cabinet, hell-bent on endless war throughout the region, is a major impediment to peace. And again, Hezbollah weakened as they had been, in decades. And the Lebanese government anxious to try to work for an alternative to having Hezbollah, having the amount of power they do. And this was an opportunity for the Israeli government to work with the Lebanese government, with our support, with the Lebanese armed forces, not to eliminate Hezbollah. The idea that you're going to somehow be able to completely disarm them and eliminate them has always been a fantasy, but you can weaken them, but you can only weaken them if you build up the alternative. And the alternative is the Lebanese government, the Lebanese people, the Lebanese armed forces who don't like Hezbollah. But Israel's going to have to accept some risk. Okay, Hezbollah's not going away if they're going to get to peace. Otherwise, they're looking at an endless war and an endless conflict because Hezbollah and other forces, they just keep rebuilding and keep attacking Israel in different ways. So I'm very worried about it. I think President Trump better be strong and say we need a ceasefire in Lebanon, too.
Congressman, did you get the chance to listen to UN Ambassador Mike Walls earlier? I ask because some of what he spelled out in his interview earlier today, it sounded a bit like a pipe dream. I mean, as Eamon was saying earlier tonight, this idea that the work actually really begins now, because this is where the details become clear. All these challenges will have to be actually worked out across some kind of table. He was sort of confidently projecting, for example, that Iran is ready to give up support of its proxies. And that fact alone just doesn't seem believable to anyone who has been.
It's not. Yeah, I mean, look, and again, to come back to my central point, which I made longer than I would have liked, that Trump still imagines that somehow he's just going to completely smash Iran. They're not going to be able to do anything. And that's what undermined the JCPOA, was the notion that, they made the perfect the enemy of the good. Iran's going to be a problem. I understand that. But we need to figure out a way to deter them. And I think this is what Trump has been saying for 2 months. We have a deal, right? How many times has he said that? But he's gone beyond saying we have a deal. He said Iran has agreed to everything. They're going to open up the strait. They're going to get rid of their nuclear weapons. They're going to stop supporting proxies. You're right. It is sort of like a wish fulfillment strategy, where if they say it out loud, that's going to make it so. It's not going to happen. We are going to have to work together with partners in the region to deter the bad behavior of Iran. We are not going to be able to destroy it militarily. Now, I think we got enough partners, we got enough capabilities that we can deter it and we can contain that risk. But as long as Mike Walls and others continue to fantasize that somehow we're going to apply enough force to eliminate the Iranian threat, this peace agreement is going to be on very fragile ground.
Yeah, and to your point, Congressman, the oil Brent prices, future prices, seem to be reacting to the news coming out of Iran. They're down almost 4% to $81 per barrel, which I guess is a big sign that the markets are welcoming the news coming out of the region this evening. Congressman Adam Smith, it's always a pleasure to have you on. So thank you so much, sir, for joining us. We're going to squeeze in a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue more with our breaking news coverage out of Iran. You are watching the Weekend Primetime on MS Now.
How many Spotify accounts are you paying for?
Breaking news coming out of the Middle East this evening. President Trump posting on Truth Social that a deal with Iran has been reached. We are still, of course, waiting for more information about the terms of that deal, and Iran is expected to release a statement shortly. Here's Vice President J.D. Vance on the deal just moments ago.
This is the immediate opening of the Straits of Hormuz and, of course, the lifting of the naval blockade that we've had on Iran along with it. The number two thing that it means is that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, and not just pursue a nuclear weapon, but procure or try to buy a nuclear weapon as well. That's built into this agreement. And then the third thing is, and this only happens, to be clear, if Iran delivers on their promise. And so there's an approach here where we verify and where there are real benefits so long as Iran meets their end of the obligation. But if the Iranians comply with this deal, it is going to fundamentally transform the Middle East for the next 50 years. It's going to end the war. It's going to make the Middle East more investable.
Joining us now is MSNOW reporter Julia Jester. Julia, it's good to have you on the show. So a very busy day today in the White House for a lot of different reasons, not just the negotiations in Iran, but you've got the UFC fight coming up, and then the president heads to the world stage where he'll be traveling to Switzerland, participating in G7, and apparently, according to the Pakistani prime minister, by the end of the week, signing this deal with Iran. What are you hearing from your sources at this hour about how this plays out, what the deal entails, and where we go forward from here?
Well, as you mentioned, Friday appears to be the big day. J.D. Vance, the vice president, signaling that he would be present for it. Unsure if POTUS will attend as well, but the Pakistanis tagged the negotiators in the announcement of this deal, include Witkoff and Kushner, and it has been a long time coming, and we have not seen the text of this agreement. Reminder, this is an agreement, a memorandum of understanding, as the administration characterized it, that would then lead to multiple days, weeks of technical talks to work out the finer details. But in the announcement, it's notable that it said the permanent cessation of hostilities in the Middle East, including Lebanon. So that would include the Israeli-Lebanon front that has been a thorn in the side of these Iran peace negotiations. The Trump administration saying that these are on two separate tracks, but now they seem to be combined. But what we do know about this deal is, first and foremost, the president wanted a deal that he said would be better than the JCPOA negotiated under Obama. And while we can't really square the difference between the two without seeing the text itself, Trump administration officials were talking today about two key points that they think makes this stronger. The first being payment for performance, essentially, that Iran would not see any sort of sanctions relief or assets unfrozen until it proved that it was adhering to the terms outlined in a permanent deal. And aside from that, the verification process, that's the other aspect, arguing that the Obama nuclear deal had too many loopholes and they wanted to not trust but verify, but really make sure that inspectors could go in. Secretary Hegseth was pressed on that on the Sunday show earlier today. It's unclear what the enforcement mechanism will be exactly, but that's what that period of roughly 60 days, it seems, will be to hash out those finer details. But the president announcing on Truth Social following this news, he said, "I hereby authorize the toll-free opening of the Strait of Hormuz," as if he had the authority to do that. He does not. The Iranians have been the ones that have been holding the strait hostage. But the president said once that happens, the blockade will be lifted. And he told oil tankers to start your engines, but they might have to slow their roll a bit because a demining process has to occur before ships can really, truly safely transit through the strait. We know Iran has been laying mines. We know that there has been an international coalition led by the UK, by France, to really bring countries together to help with the facilitation of traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. And the reason that hadn't started is they were waiting for this exact moment, the cessation of hostilities permanently. No ceasefire that turned out to be a less fire, where there's still exchange of attacks and defensive strikes, as the U.S. has been doing for the past several days. We've seen a lot of back and forth. But ultimately, this deal means that there is progress on the freedom of navigation, hopefully, and we'll see the finer points when it comes to what they do with the highly enriched uranium is top of that list.
Thanks, Julia. And joining us now by phone is John Kirby, MSNOW national security analyst, former White House national security communications advisor, and retired Rear Admiral in the USA Navy. So, John, could you talk to us about what this means in terms of the demining process of the Strait? Is this peace deal going to be enough, as Julia described, for our allies, for us to begin the process of making sure that the Strait is safe and open for business?
I think that's an open question. It's a great question to be asking. I think it's important to remember that this is a pause not a peace. A pause, not a peace. It will be yet an extension of the existing ceasefire, which, as your reporter noted, wasn't much of a calm ceasefire. I mean, they were talking and fighting at the same time, which means they were not necessarily committed to doing one full-throatedly. So we have to wait and see. The issue of the mines is a serious issue. These mines are largely floating mines. It means they go with the tides, and so it's sometimes hard to find them and locate them and remove them. And so it could be a matter of some weeks before shipping companies feel completely safe, even knowing they won't get hit by a drone or a missile, feel completely safe going through that strait, because I didn't see anything in there that indicated we were going to escort those ships. So I do think we'll probably see an increased flow here in coming weeks, which is a good thing for the global economy, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere near at the rate of passage of the strait that we saw before the war started.
And can I ask if you had the chance, I asked Congressman Smith this a few minutes ago about UN Ambassador Mike Waltz and his message earlier today. The administration has been projecting, confidence that all of this is going to work out very much in the United States' favor, that on key issues like Iran's support for proxies like Hezbollah and Hamas, that they are just going to simply give that up over the course of these next 60 days as the real work begins. Do you have confidence in that? Is there a real risk of some of these major issues falling apart now as that process begins?
I think that's always a risk. Yeah, when you're negotiating with the Iranians, that's always a risk. I mean, look, the regime, which is still in place and actually more autocratic and more ideological than they were before and more aggressive, they want survival. They want to stay in power, and they're not going to give anything up, certainly not easily or quickly, that's going to threaten their hold on that power. One of the things they see as key to their power and their desire for hegemony in the region is these proxy groups. So it is very likely that that is going to be a tough nut for them to crack and a tough thing to get over the finish line. The other thing you got to remember, and this is the same for the IRGC, is it's not a monolith. These proxies, yes, they rely on Iranian support and weapons and funding and, of course, training. But they also operate sort of semi-independently, and they don't always do everything Tehran wants them to do. So even if the regime were to agree, and I don't think that they will readily agree, but let's just say they did, I don't think they have perfect control over these proxies and what they do. So it's potentially still a very dangerous situation.
So let me pick up on that point, John, if I can, and ask you on the other side of that coin, it's what Israel also does. You probably saw me ask Congressman Adam Smith about Israel being the spoiler here, as it has demonstrated in the past. It has the capabilities to strike Iran, to strike in Lebanon. And obviously, we know that the Prime Minister of Israel has expressed both openly and privately his disdain for any kind of negotiations with the Iranians, any kind of deal, anything short of regime change, he wouldn't be happy with. How concerned are you? How concerned should we be that the Israelis do not abide by this agreement, that the United States, this administration, does not exercise any leverage over Israel to try to get them to comply with an agreement bilaterally with Iran?
Man, you brought up a really key issue, and I hope it's a key issue that people are talking about and thinking about in the days and weeks ahead. Because Israel is our only ally in this war, the only other country actively participating in it, and they have their own national security interests to look after. A nuclear Iran is a national security threat to the United States. To the Israelis, it's an existential threat. And their support for Hezbollah and the fighting that Hezbollah continues to be capable of, that also represents an existential threat to the people of Israel, certainly to the people that live in the north. And that's why you hear Prime Minister Netanyahu not be a full-throated supporter of a peace deal with Iran, because in his mind, the war's not over until the regime is toppled and they have absolutely zero capacity and ability to produce a nuclear weapon. And we are a long way from that. So Israel could be the spoiler. I can guarantee you they're going to be waiting very, very closely, watching very closely to see what the details of this agreement are. And they could actually potentially bring it all to naught if it doesn't meet their national security interests, and if they decide to continue to pursue operations against Hezbollah, Hamas, maybe the Houthis, and certainly in Tehran. And that is a distinct possibility. They have their own, again, interests at stake here, and they will, as you would expect Prime Minister Netanyahu to do, look after those interests first and foremost, regardless of what President Trump decides to agree to.
John, we do have a new President Trump Truth Social on the opening of the Strait. And here's what he says. He says, this great deal will bring peace and security to the whole region. Many presidents have tried to make peace with Iran and all have failed before me. The leaders of the region have for the first time found a president who can help them achieve real peace. With the opening of the Strait upon the signing of the deal on Friday for purposes of mine removal, oil will flow on both ends again for the region and the world, ! President Donald J. Trump. What's your reaction to that Truth Social?
Well, look, we all should want President Trump to be successful here in securing our national interest in the region. That's of course beyond question. But I would tell you, just from my limited understanding, and we don't have the deal, we can't see the details of it, but from my limited understanding of where we were going, this is a pause, not a peace. And so to characterize this as a peace is disingenuous and probably not fully truthful with the American people. This is not an end to the war specifically. It's an agreement to extend the ceasefire, which was shaky to begin with, for yet another 2 months while they begin to negotiate. It's not an end right now today. Today's the beginning, a new beginning of a set of discussions and negotiations and hopefully actions by